speaker who is an advanced sommelier on his quest to become a master, how tough the process is, and you have great knowledge, and now you were chairman in 2005.
A 3-year term, right, from 2005 to 2008.
That's fantastic. So congratulations on that.
Thanks.
So what advice do you give to the sommeliers now that are looking to follow in your footsteps?
Well, it still takes a lot of memorization, and because the world's a larger place with more wine sources, identifying all the individual nooks and crannies of law that have to do with yield limits and alcohol minimums and blends and varietal predominance. That's still core stuff. What we've done actually in the court is we've changed bit by bit, slowly with the times. There used to be, it's an English organization, very classical sort of butler service is expected, and knowledge about what now you might think of arcane things like cigars was expected. Cuban cigars, which was quite an anomaly because in America, Cuban cigars are legally not permitted, but we had to know the Cuban cigar regions and know how to handle all the different shapes and sizes and how to light them properly. Well, that's gone. We pulled cigar service completely out of the court's exam, but we've added things like expecting our candidates to know a lot about sake and how sake is made in the different regions it comes from, how the rice is managed, and water usage, and all the rest of the things that make sake interesting and variable throughout Japan. And similarly with the cocktail world. As spirits have become much more evolved, much more diverse, at the same time there's been a great interest in classic cocktails. There's a whole mixology phenomenon going on, and we expect sommeliers to know those things as well. I could see us expanding into other aspects of food, like strong knowledge of cheeses and cheese origins and styles of cheese that come from different countries and regions.
So what about beer? I understand you have an interest in beer. So.
Well, I love beer. Right? Who doesn't? There's an old line in the wine business. It takes a lot of beer to make good wine.
To make good wine, right?
And that's because making wine is hard work, picking grapes, shoveling out tanks, and all the rest of it. Very hard work during the harvest season. You don't want to drink any wine.
No.
A couple of beers is the goal at the end of the day. And frankly, beer and wine are intertwined historically. They're fermented beverages, one based on grain, one on grape. Beer is actually older and found in ancient civilizations as a reason that human beings actually settled in places to grow grain, was to make beer. So it has its origins in real anthropological food history that I think is quite profound. And beer is variable in so many ways because you can do more manipulations of the grain and different blends of different hops and so forth. There's a lot of factors that go into it. With beer, you're trying to create something exciting out of a kind of core raw material. With wine, you're trying to not do too much to a great core raw material, which is ripe clusters of grapes that exhibit the classic character you want. And the wine, if it's good, will basically make itself. There are blending choices, certainly. There are barrel choices, certainly. Those are maybe a little different from what goes on with beer. But theoretically, they're related, and of course, they're quite different. And I just love drinking good beer. And I worked in a brewery once, briefly. I was one of the opening bartenders at Goose Island Brewing in Chicago in its infancy, and I'm very proud of that. And when I was in a wine distributor, we sold some craft beers, and I really enjoyed that part of the business. So nowadays, it's not unusual to go to a very formal dinner at which you might expect a sequence of great wines to be paired with food, and you might also see beers used of various sorts. You might see cocktails or non-alcoholic beverages made from juices and extracts and bitters as flavor components. So there's a wider world of beverages out there. And in the court, we expect people to know what to do with all of them.
That sounds very interesting.
And of course, most of us enjoy all of it.
Yes, absolutely. That helps.
Yeah, and there's a place and a time for all of it, and you go to see local traditions in some places, and it's just really fun to get to know how wine or spirits are used in ways that make society better, and that's certainly part of the theme that I think interests me in wine in the first place, is that throughout human history, there's been an association in the better cultures of the world, the more successful, more established, more stable cultures of the world. Wine's been highly regarded. It's what made it so important in religious festivities in the old world, in the ancient world. And it became very important to various empires and successful sequences of business throughout Western Europe over the years. So I think wine does make a lot of incursions into the anthropology of our people and where we are now. It hasn't quite hit in America the same way, because we've had so many interruptions. Our founders, a lot of them, were not interested in alcohol. Our interruptions of issues like prohibition, of course, changed a lot of behavior and attitudes, and we're still recovering from that in the wine and spirits business. But for the most part, we've adopted wine as a successful culture very well. We're not quite up to the level of consumption that you see in Europe, but we're working our way up there.